Guys, so we have a really interesting video today. I've been meaning to really put this one together, but someone left a comment that just reminded me. So today I'm going to be talking about how it feels to travel as a black person and what it is that you will experience and some of the things I've experienced and just kind of my whole just perspective on it as well. So we've been traveling for the past 5 years. We started when my daughter was 2 months old, and we've also had a child in Mexico. That's where we currently are. We've been to Ireland, the UK, Canada, Bali, Thailand, Doha, Vietnam, Singapore, just all these different places. I really feel like it's important for people to kind of get that perspective of what it is. So when you do jump out, or if you're trying to, you kind of understand what's already out here. So we can either change it, not care about it, whatever it is you want to do. But I think it's important to just have that discussion. So the first thing I want to say is, for the most part, 98% of what it is that I deal with is from expats. It's not from the local people. It's not from Vietnamese. It's not from Mexicans. It's not from anybody who's like there. Typically, it's from people who come to that place with their prejudice and stereotypes, and then they're just basically spreading it. Because if you think about it, most of the places do not have a history of this.
Its crimes have caused bloodshed in America for over 100
or this.
Photos of that bus, in flames with.
Or even this.
Thousands of examples in cartoons, in movies, in books, and in real life.
But what they do have in common, is what I found traveling to all these places, is they have this foundation of colonization. And with colonization comes colorism and prejudice. One of the crazy things that tends to happen to me is I'm asked all the time about these stereotypes, and people don't even realize it. It's so deeply ingrained. Like, they'll just come up to me and be like, yo, why are you doing that? You don't do that to anybody else in here, but you do it to me. Or they'll come up to you and just start rapping. Like, it's the craziest thing. They'll just come up to you and just start rapping a song and expect me to know it, and then be upset that I don't know it or don't want to. So they have this idea of who you are as a person, and they don't really take the time to figure it out. And this kind of plays on our view and how we're looked at around the world. For instance, I met some people, and me, I'm like this. When I meet you, it's like this. And he was like, yeah, man, I know you smoke a little, and I'm like, you have no clue who I am. And so he had this idea in his head. And then when I didn't smoke with him, he got mad and was like, why we never hang out? Why is it? And I'm like, bro, because you literally asked me to do some reckless stuff without getting to know me and just expected and had all this prejudice, and then had the nerve to be like, yeah, I'm one of the good ones or something like that. And it's just, so like, even me, like, I play guitar, and I told people like, yeah, I'm into music. Like, oh, it's rap music? It's always rap music. And again, that's my foundation. Like, as I grew up as a kid, that's what I was listening to, but I've expanded. And a lot of times, like, with being a black person and traveling, people don't allow you to expand. People don't allow you to, like, think outside of what they think you are.
People will meet a black person who completely challenges every racial stereotype that they've ever had. Rather than giving up the stereotype, they create a special category for that person and say, well, you're not like other black people.
But let me say, it's still nothing like the U.S. Like, in the U.S., I was asked if I pee a different color. This is an adult. This is an adult asking me. They've been like so disconnected. And of course they're from Georgia, so it's like we're still segregated. But I want to share some of the experiences that I've had and some stories, because I've done a lot of healing. Like, I was very militant. Yes, my mom. I was militant. I was very, very hostile, very angry, very aggressive. And I feel like that anger in me, it's still there, but I feel like I understand it a lot better. And I think that's kind of what my healing process has been, is me really understanding how America has affected me, how I want to move with what I have, and just my growth in general on the process of me not even worrying about that, me not even being affected by it. Because one thing I do feel is helpful, and I've seen this when I look at history of other black people that have left the U.S., is they tend to feel like they finally can interact and live without being reminded that you're black. You're a person first. And that's something I really recommend every black person leave the U.S., because you will feel that. Just leave. Just go. Just anywhere. It's honestly better. So now I'm going to talk to you about some of the stories that I've had as far as like healing. Some are negative, some are positive. It doesn't really matter. You just take it the way it is. So sometimes I'll be in spaces where I am the only black person. Sometimes they feel more comfortable or uncomfortable, and then things just happen, like really weird things. So one, for instance, I was in Vietnam. An Australian guy, he asked me to like go out with him, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm just gonna try. We go out. It's cool. We're just walking around, and then a bunch of his friends are just there. It's like a table of like 6, maybe 7 old white guys. And I was like, oh man, let me try not to have any expectation about how this is gonna go. Sure enough, as soon as I get there, I was like, hey guys, start shaking hands. And this one guy is just like, hey, y'all look like chess pieces. You know, one white and one black. And I'm like, I knew it. He's uncomfortable, doesn't know how to interact with me, and he just has to say something. Everybody at the table was like, bro, what are you doing? Why would you do that? It was addressed by the people around, but it's just like, there is just this discomfort that comes out, and you'll feel it. People have stereotypes and expectations of who you are. One of the things too, because my partner is white, they'll feel more comfortable talking to her about these things, and it will be, yeah. So like we were somewhere at one point, she was talking to this lady and she was like, oh yeah, we're vegan. And she was like, your partner's vegan? And she was like, yeah. And she was like, oh, well, you know, he's black, so I thought he was just, they're so aggressive. I didn't think that a vegan could be black. And it's like, you're gonna get these things. It's not the majority, but it's like weird stuff like that, just little weird stuff. Next, we're gonna talk about police. And I tend to really not like police at all. In the US, I've had terrible interactions. They threw me in one of the worst jails in Atlanta. I was in full like uniform going to work, you know, straight edge, nothing. And they took me to jail for an illegal lane change and wanted to give me time, like jail time. And this was weeks, like a week before Nina was born. So that I was gonna miss my daughter's birth. I was gonna be in jail for an illegal lane change. It was crazy. So yeah, I really don't like police, but I've healed a lot from that from traveling. So we were in Vietnam at one point, and it's funny, I felt free in Vietnam the first time we got there. Basically, we didn't see a police officer for 6 months. First time we saw one, they came knocking at our door because they needed to verify that our address was the same as what we submitted to get into the country. So they come to the door, and I'm like, oh, snap, Becca, record, make sure you got everything. And I'm just, you know, in my trauma. So the guy opened the door. He's like really, really kind. Like, hey, can we come in? I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Takes his shoes off, extra polite, comes sits down at the table, you know, and I'm like, Becca, record. This is all up front. We sign the paper, he signs off, and he leaves. That's it. That was it. And I was like, what? You know, around the world is different. Police are different. And I tested that because I was like so shocked by it. So, I mean, I really had like a lot of trauma from it because I remember we were like out of our hotel window in Vietnam. We were looking out and there was just a taxi car. It was a taxi car and it looked like a police car from the US. So I was like, my heart started beating. And then I looked at it and I was like, oh, it's a taxi car. So I have a lot of like things that I really needed to deal with as far as the police and how I feel. But I remember one time we were in the market in Vietnam and the police were like shooing people off the street, like, because sometimes the vendors will get a little far into the street and shooing people off. And I'm like, oh man, he's gonna get to me in a second. I was like, let me see what happens. And he gets to me, he looks at me, and then he just keeps moving. And I was like, what? Like my whole mind was just blown. It was crazy. And I needed that interaction because I was like, wow, police really treat you different in different countries. And that may not be so in countries where there's still more stereotypes, but places where you're just not a threat. You're not seen as a criminal. You're seen as a visitor. You're seen as an expat. You're seen as something different, you know? And so in America, I'm viewed as a criminal off jump. I did something or they can find something that I did, whatever the case may be. So that was a really big healing process for me. Like when we went to Ireland too, I saw police with a huge gun. I was like, hey, you're not supposed to have guns in Europe. Like, what's going on? And he was like, yeah, we're special police officers. We don't. He was talking to me. He was joking with people around. Everybody it was like they're people first and police second. In the U.S., they're police first, second, third, and then you might find a person under there. Another thing that's really helped is meeting so-called white people from different countries. My friends from Ireland, from Switzerland, from Canada. It was like, it really helped me to see different types of people. And then eventually a friend of mine, she came up with this way that there are white people and there are people who happen to be white. And I was like, that definitely helped me to heal a lot of that anger and temper it and express it and really think about what it is that I feel and these incidents that I've had with people who look like this, and even expressing it to them like, yo, people that look like you, where I'm from, they're not like you and they don't think like you. And there is still a level of like, most people don't understand the difference between just being prejudiced and being racist, or racism versus prejudice. Because honestly, racism is a misnomer. It's not really a good way of like, anti-black would probably be a better term. But racism is like institutional power. The same way that like you have COINTELPRO, which specifically attack the black community. The doll test, where kids who are darker tend to think that they're ugly or they don't belong, or there's just so many things. It's not just, one instance where somebody doesn't like you because of your skin color. That's nothing. That's just prejudice. But when there's an entire system, an entire institution where it's legal to kill you, where it's legal to deny you housing, where it's legal to build a prison, like these are things that it's like you don't understand. And I've talked to some of my white friends about it, where they're like, oh yeah, I went to this place and somebody was like, oh, I don't like you because you're white. And it's like, that's not it. That's prejudice. When I go to a place where it's like I go to the hospital and they think for some reason because I'm black, now I can take more pain. That is what I'm talking about. That's the difference, where there's an entire institution that's supposed to make you feel safe that's attacking you. And so people are like, oh yeah, there's a good cop, there's a bad cop. Just because someone's good to you doesn't mean they're going to see me and feel the same way. So it's like, I've had to really be able to express these things to people and hear someone who's not like, oh, you're being a victim. It's like just stupid stuff. Instead of just listening to what it is that someone, an actual person, is telling you, rather than going to the internet and finding these like instances where you can verify and validate your own stereotypes and beliefs. So it's just one of the things you have to deal with, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people already know what I'm talking about and already know how it feels. But in conclusion, travel. It's much better than just staying in the U.S., remaining there, and you know, it's a very cleansing process to live without feeling like you're a color, and being reminded that you're a color in almost every interaction. And just still like, they still get like weird microaggressions where everybody will shake everybody else's hand, but when it comes to me, they'll kind of be like a little nervous, or I get like an occasional purse grab. But I would much rather have that than what I was dealing with when I was in Georgia. Like, I felt confined. Like, I lived in Atlanta, and I don't know if you know about Atlanta, but inside the perimeter, it's okay. When you go outside the perimeter, it's not okay. And I've been pulled over many times going outside the perimeter. I've had situations where, I don't know, like I didn't feel like I was gonna make it. Just weird stuff. But traveling, I've never felt unsafe. And I've been pulled over by the police in Mexico many times. And it's usually a really good interaction. And so it feels different when you're outside the U.S. So hope you liked the video. If you don't, comment, let me know you hate it. Call me a victim, all that stuff. I love it. We can have a nice, good discussion. But if you do like the video, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, give us some comments. I would love to talk to anybody who wants to talk. I'm very open. For the most part, I have the capacity to communicate and not be upset. So let's talk. But y'all have a nice day. Enjoy the rest of your life. You can be more than the sum of what people believe you are. Enjoy.